Hey everyone, and welcome back to Pro AV Today. I'm your host, Ben Thomas. You know, when you look at the world of content, it's constantly evolving, right? And I'm not only talking about the creation and distribution side, I'm talking about some of those interactive elements, where historically you might have seen something like product placement, maybe a QR code pop up on screen. That evolution of content is continuing to evolve and drive so many more options for interactivity, whether that's click to buy, whether that's gamification, whether that's a number of different interactive elements. And, it's interesting to see as we go into this season of broadcasting, content-focused trade shows and organization meetups, things like that, where that really is a conversation that's driving a lot of our habits, right? So I wanted to extend that conversation today and bring on a couple people who are a little bit smarter than me to help break it down. And that's Bapst and Dalaney Thompson of AiBuy. Randy and Dalaney, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, look, we'll start here, and Randy, we'll kick it to you, right? When you think about content consumption, historically, the pattern has been a little bit more passive, right? Whether that's the family sitting around the TV to watch primetime, sing-along shows, or maybe I'm watching sports, maybe I'm watching Netflix, things like that. Historically, those have been passive type of interactions. But now, you're seeing viewers start to demand a little bit more from their interactivity, wanting to be able to purchase things with a simple click. What are some of the demands that you're seeing viewers specifically call for through interactive content?
So, we're seeing obviously a big shift in content and in programming, right? It's all, there's a heavy lean towards streaming. And as such, with multiple devices, there's a lot more interactivity with optionality. The CTV side, I think, is still a little clunky in that you refer to maybe a QR code coming into the remote itself is very clunky, and you're starting to see things evolve now where mobile devices are being able to be paired with the CTV, and that's all coming. It's not quite there yet, but it's evolving very rapidly. And the content and the interactivity, as those things get better, gamification, sports betting, all those things become more real, more tangible, more possible, more fluid.
Well, and Dalaney, Randy talked a lot about some of those innovations that are happening, not only from the control side, whether that's the remote control, whether that's the mobile phone, whatever. What are some of the ways that you're actually seeing the creators leverage this tool, whether it's a network, whether it's a league, even just a pure content creator? What are some of the ways that you're seeing them leverage the interactive content?
Well, for content creators, it really is a game changer, introducing this interactive element. I think the big code that everyone was trying to crack with content creation was how to monetize your content, first and foremost. The way that we're consuming content is evolving, it's changing, especially with the younger generations and all these social media, platforms. In recent years, obviously, we've all seen the power of influencers and kind of, the product recommendation and the buying power that they can harness through their audiences. So, companies like ours, what we're really trying to introduce is a solution now that would eliminate kind of all those go-betweens to make that experience not only more interactive, but also being able to provide a point of purchase that's a lot closer to the content that you're consuming.
Well, Randy, it's really interesting too, especially as we focus on some of those outcomes, right? Especially from the retail side. Obviously, click conversion buy is the true outcome, right? But when you look at maybe a sports league or a sports network, their outcome might be genuinely maybe an app download or just driving interaction or fandom within a specific team. What are some of the outcomes that you're seeing in maybe some of these non-traditional areas?
Well, certainly for ticket sales, the optionality on what is possible is there all the way down to you get your favorite player on and at bat, for example, Major League Baseball, and their jersey might appear as a purchase item. So the variance is, I think a lot of these things are going to probably be experimented with as this sort of evolving technology gets placed into the hands of the not only content providers but the consumers. And as far as the display, right? So there are many different ways to display this where it's not so invasive, where it's not so in your face and so distracting. With hover, with translucent sort of pics, with the streaming banner at the bottom that can appear at times, or if it's not interacted with, will disappear. All those things are now in play, and it gives a lot more control to the consumer and to the provider on how those things would really be used.
Well, Dalaney, I want to stick there for a second as we're kind of talking about implementing some of these interactive elements, right? The tendency, and I'd love to use the example all the time when I talk about things like product placement, where you go look at like Transformers or Fast and the Furious, where it's just punching you in the face with like brands like Sprite and Nike, and it's very obvious and very clear that they are trying to display some of these products. But what are some of the ways that you know, people can leverage this technology, especially from a network or maybe a broadcaster standpoint, where they can leverage this technology and find that happy medium between maybe the traditional viewing experience and some of that interactive element?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone wants to kind of reserve the integrity of the content, right? Of that creative process, and you know, whatever you're watching, whether it's entertainment based or if it's a makeup tutorial, there is that integrity that we want to you know, keep intact. So you know, for us, I know that our solution is very customizable, and the fact of the elements can be as interactive as you want them to be. So they won't even be, you know, displayed or present unless you're really clicking on the video or engaging with it. And I think the real difference is between, you know, it's not as obvious. It's more subtle, I think, than the product placement that we're used to seeing now. And it's also limitless. You know, before you were kind of limited to seeing, you know, one brand, whether it's Coke or Pepsi or Doritos. You know, now we have the capability of offering, you know, many vendors and having this multi-vendor, multi-brand shopping experience in one transaction. And that's what's really revolutionizing the way that you're interacting with content. So now maybe you want, you know, the Doritos or the Pepsi because subliminally, you know, one of your favorite stars is consuming it in a show. But what if you also want their jacket or a guitar that you see being played, or their shoes, or, you know, if you're watching a music video, now you could get, you know, tickets for a show, a download, merchandise. So it really opens up the ability to offer a larger array of products from different vendors, and just that convenience factor of being able to purchase what you see when you want it.
Well, Randy, one of the cool things about adding interactivity to some of this content is that not only is it driving outcomes like purchases and buys and things like that, it actually encourages viewer interactivity and retention.
Yes.
And that's kind of the golden ticket when it comes to broadcasting and content, right? Is you want people to engage for longer, right? What are some of the ways that you're actually seeing this interactive content roll out to drive viewer engagement and viewer retention?
So, you know, that's a great point. So, you know, once the eyeballs are there, you really don't want them to leave. One of the, and really right now, the streaming model as it exists is gone really down the route of a subscription model on a monthly basis. And so keeping that viewer engaged, keeping them throughout the show, giving them the ability to really monetize their real estate on the creator side. You know, you don't have to stop the show for 30 seconds or a minute to show a commercial, a branded commercial. It's going to remind you to go buy a Coke or Pepsi when you're done watching the show. You could show merchandise within the content and have the experience remain in the content with no redirects. So it's a frictionless buying experience, and it's a very accurate way. One of the big challenges right now is measuring return on ad spend. The conferences I've been to, that's been brought up time and time again because it's a big quagmire right now, and this is very measurable, right? So you've got someone there, they're engaged, they see multiple products that they might want to purchase, they engage, they act, they continue to watch the show, stay engaged, and you know, they then have that measurability to see, okay, what did that, what's the put through, what was the click through rate, what was the engagement, and then the people can continue to enjoy the program all the way to its end without having to leave to go and check out somewhere else.
Well, that's really a great point. And Dalaney, I kind of want to ask you this question in that same token, right? When you think about the viewer experience, a lot of that ease of use and that ease of interactivity comes even before you ever see the ad, right? And a lot of that is through the collaboration of the broadcaster, the content creator, and the brand, the retailer, the buying community, what have you. Talk a little bit about that relationship, right? As somebody who's a content creator and who develops a lot of this, maybe it also works a lot in broadcast. What are some of the ways that they could proactively work with some of these brands and retailers to help really maximize this use of the use of interactivity, this type of content?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, just being able to show that there is a revenue stream available. That's really the missing key with a lot of these direct relationships. I mean, people want to partner with people that they know who have an audience, right? First and foremost, and have a way to offer or sell their product. So again, having an interactive element provides kind of a new revenue stream for these relationships to take place that may not have existed before. And as far as the integration, things are becoming a lot easier on that front, just as technology progresses. So it's a lot easier to set up these forms of communication dev-wise so that it allows those partnerships to take place as well.
Well, look, I'll give you both an opportunity to answer this last question, and it's one that I want you to pull out your crystal ball a little bit. Interactive types of content like this are transparently relatively in their infancy, right? From your perspective, what are some of the ways that you'd love to see these types of content, really this approach rolled out in the next 5 to 10 years? Randy, we'll start with you.
I think that it's a unique opportunity. As I mentioned before, the traditional program where you're sitting down and you might have to sit through, 10 commercials, right, throughout the course of the program. It'll give the opportunity to the content provider to go out and form direct relationships with a Levi's, for example, or with a Dingo Boots, or whatever it is that they're going to want to film, and have that content available for purchase throughout the show, without having to, go into a traditional commercial. So it's there, it's monetizable, and it's uniquely different than anything we see today. I think that's one aspect. I think the other aspect is, as you talked about, gamification, sports betting. I mean, there's a whole nother universe there that can be explored and opened up with content providers that's currently not available today.
One of the most interesting things I've seen, Ben, is actually it's almost kind of this reversal taking place. Is once you start introducing some of these solutions and technology, it's inspiring to content creators. So now that they know that they have this, there's content being created around these solutions. So I can't get into too many details with creators right now. I'm sure they don't want me announcing their projects that they're working on, but there's so many examples of this of sports shows, or if you have a famous sports figure on who's talking about, one of their favorite moments in their career, and now they have, a game ball, for instance, that they could sell to the audience right there, live, authenticated. Or if you're a documentarian and you're doing a documentary about a really great cause, now here's a leverage to take this very human element, these compelling, emotional, moving, stories, and have a way to generate funding or to your nonprofit or whatever it is. So it's really interesting that, the more that we introduce this to the creative people and to the creative side, it's more of how it's inspiring them to come up with new ways and new ideas of how to create content around the solution.
Well, look, I appreciate both of you. I know we're kind of just scratching the surface of some of the capabilities of this type of technology, and it's really exciting to see how not only is it's going to empower creators and broadcasters, but really the brand and the retail community moving forward. So Randy and Dalaney, I appreciate you hopping on the show today, and looking forward to probably having you back on in the future, having a similar discussion. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today. Be sure to watch next time.